I wanted to do since 2020 when I was doing a lot of the training, going through Rule 1 through Rule 10. And when I came to substitution, I've been wanting to spend the time on it. I knew it was going to be deep. I didn't know how deep it was going to be until I start digging into it. We had 145 slides later. People are like, well, how can you get to 145 slides just talking about substitution? Because there's a lot to it, a lot to substitution. And so the whole idea behind this course, that it was spurred on from a game I did, and the official was trying to figure out where to enforce the illegal substitution from. And I was trying to explain to him that it should be from the previous spot. He was like, no, it should be from the succeeding spot. So it's like, you know what? I've been wanting to do this class for 5 years now. And so about 3 or 4 weeks ago, when I decided to teach this course and I started digging into Rule 3, Section 7, I didn't realize how much information there is that I understand. I understood back then, but I didn't understand how deep it was going to go until I start digging in it. Understand, when I dig in something, it's like going through rabbit holes. We stay consistent, but it's going to be some very important information that we're going to cover today. Now, real quick, we're going to go ahead and start all over again. So, players who practice game officials who have a complete understanding of the letter as well as the spirit and intent of the rules and who administer them consistently and fairly. Listen, we are getting paid to be out there. No one else is being out there paid us other than security and law enforcement. But on that field, we are. And guess what? Players train hard. We should be training harder. We should be training harder than anyone else out there because we are getting paid to be out there. Okay, we're going to spend a lot of time on, we're going to spend not a lot of time on recapping Class 1 and Class 2. There's a lot of information given out during those two classes, and if we spent too much time recapping, we'll never get done with Class 3. So if you want to, we got those recorded. If you want to get those recordings, just hit me up. I have no problem getting them to you. So I'm going to do a recap, but it's going to be very, very straight to the point, right? Rule 3, Section 7 deals with 6 articles of substitution. Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3 deal with infractions before the snap. Article 4 and 5 deal with substitution infractions at the snap. And the last single, Article 6, deal with substitution infractions after the snap. So when we went over that, we talked about definitions, we talked about the 2 basic penalty spots, previous spot and succeeding spot, right? But the thing is, if you don't know which basket of what we know like categories, if you didn't know which basket the substitution foul went in, you are going to get the enforcement wrong because you got to know what basket they went into. Now we're going to transition to something about illegal fractions that went from a 5-yard penalty to a 15-yard penalty for illegal participation. That's what we'll be covering today. How we go from 5 to 15. Here's why the basket matters. Basket 1 and basket 3 both enforce from the succeeding spot. Basket 2 is different. It's a live ball simultaneously with the snap and enforced from the previous spot. Where officials trip up at, where officials mess up at, veterans sometimes want to enforce basket 2 like basket 3 from the succeeding spot. In other words, it'll be a foul that's in basket 2 that should go to the previous spot, but they want to enforce it like basket 3 from the succeeding spot. Rookies, they sometimes want to enforce basket 2 like basket 1 and treat it like a dead ball foul. Both are wrong. Basket 2 stands on its own. Wrong basket, wrong spot. We got to know the right basket in order to get the enforcement spot right. All right. And again, we can't go over all of that. If you want to know more about it, you want to hear what I have to say about it, just ask about the other videos. Now it brings us back to snap, the sub to snap window, because we're going to rely on it again later when we talk about mechanics. This window is the short period after a sub enter the field and before the snap. Inside this window, our job is to monitor, replace players, recount, and if needed, verbally engage with coaches or players to keep the game clean. The anchors here is simple. Sub the snap is the window. Keep that in your head because we're going to talk about it when we talk about how count, when we get about the count that counts. This window is the foundation. Now, let's set our foundation on the 3 class objectives. We're going to cover 3 major objectives today. I want this to be in front of your mind as we go through and exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Every substitution starts with a 5-yard penalty. And every basket, dead ball, simultaneous with a snap, or non-player, there's potential for escalation. This is what I call 5 to the 3rd power. That becomes 15. It's not a mathematical thing. It's just 5 times 3 equals 15. So I said, hey, 5 to the 3rd power. But that's the backbone of what we're building today. All right. Then we're going to be going to the basket breakdown of how the baskets can escalate. How a 5-yard penalty foul doesn't stay 5. It carries through the snap. It's deceptive. It's ignored. And it becomes illegal participation. That's that 15, 5 to the 3rd power. Illegal participation isn't a separate universe. It grows out of substitution errors. Late subs, hideouts, pretend subs. That's how the baskets connect. And what starts as a substitution mistake can escalate to illegal participation. All right? Every rule is attached to mechanics. Our mechanics is attached to rules. That's where we earn our stripes. Counting, signaling, preventive cues, the crew's integrity hinges on the sub to snap window. It is a link that breaks 5 yards to 15 yards. Mechanics keep the basket from escalating. All right, so those are the 3 anchors today. Live ball distinctions, recognizing deception, connecting rules to mechanics. Everything we do in class 3 flows back to these objectives. All right, now let's talk about why we're moving to beyond the basket. Up to this point, we focus on Rule 3, Section 3, substitution fractions. 6 articles after dealing with how subs come in, leave, and what happens if there is a breakdown in the sub to snap window. But in every definition of a non-player, Rule 232.10, it says a non-player is a coach, athlete, substitute, or replaced player who does not participate. That little phrase, does not participate, is what forces us to go beyond the baskets. All right, so it was like, well, we're going to talk about substitution, but even if we read Section 3, it says if they don't participate, So I'm like, well, what is it if they do participate? We have to discuss it because it mentions it in Rule 3. We're left substitution infractions behind. And what used to be a 5-yard penalty now morphs into a 15-yard illegal participation. So there's a reason why we're moving from beyond the basket. And it's simple. The rule book itself pushes us there, make us go there. Rule 3 told us what happens if they don't leave. But Rule 2 and Section 3 on the substitution itself remind us what happens if they do more than fail to leave, if they actually participate. And that's what we're going to go over today. Now, you might think this is strange, right? Like, why are we talking about substitute must be inside the 9-yard mark? Well, it's dealing with substitutes. And illegal substitution, we're dealing with substitutes. I thought, hey, we're going beyond the basket. Let's bring this in it as well, right? This foul doesn't neatly fit in Rule 3, Section 7, but it still belongs to the sub to snap distinction and discussion because it deals with substitutes and replaced players. A substitute must be inside the 9-yard mark to legally become a player. That's the requirement. If he fails to get inside the 9-yard marks, it's a technical a foul, right? It's a 5-yard penalty simultaneously with the snap if he don't get in there. And it kind of like fall in basket too, although it's not, right? But it's still a foul for 5 yards, just like all the other substitution fouls are. But it's dealing with, hey, you got to get, if a sub comes in to replace a player, got to get into that 9-yard mark. And we're going to bring this up later on when we, in the teaching, we're going to come back to this when we start talking about deception. All right, so here go a play by the 9-yard mark just to get everything hunky-dory, all right? All right, if we walk through this case play, A1, notice his team only had 10 players on the field. He comes on the field just as the ball is about to snap. What do we have here? The ruling says this. In this situation, A1 must be on the field on his team side of neutral zone inside the 9-yard marks. This only applies to offense. Don't apply to defense, right? He must not also violate the shift in motion provision. That means he got to be in there, got to be set for 1 second. He can't be moving toward his offensive line. Nobody else could be moving when he comes onto the field, all that stuff. And the act of entering the field cannot be used to deceive the defense. Keyword, we'll get back to that later. The statement on the rule book gives us, Rule 721, right? Adds one piece of clarity. After they're ready for play, each player who is going to participate on A must be momentarily between the 9-yard marks before the snap, right? Doesn't apply to defense, only apply to offense, right? So if you're a new official or you're working the wings and a sub comes on and the sub don't go at least not, normally on a mark field, they got the little 9-yard marks. It's the top of the numbers. It's basically what a 9-yard marks is. But if you don't have that, you got to tell the player, hey, you got to go in. Because that player does not go in before the snap, it's a live ball foul, 5 yards, right? You just can't step on the field and let the play go. You got to be within those 9-yard marks. So let's tie this together. A substitute who has been inside the 9-yard mark before he can legally become a player. If he fails, then when the ball is snapped, we're going to have a live ball foul, like basket 2, simultaneously with a snap. It is not caused by the snap, it's only revealed by the snap, okay? And that's very, very important. That's the anchor. So we want to just bring that in there, and we're going to bring it in again. Just want to touch on it because we're doing substitution, and the rule says that substitutes on team A has to be in there, so I thought it fit. And it's beyond the basket because it's definitely not in regards to the thing. So let's go. Wing officials, what can we do to help prevent this foul? Now let's bring it home. The 9-yard mark foul is one of those things that can be prevented if we locked in as a crew, right? Wings, this is your world. You own the 9 yards, right? You own the 9s. If you see a substitute hanging out, hovering near the sideline, you've got to get them in. That's why we teach preventive officiating. Get in and then come back out. And we're going to tell them, hey, man, got to go in a little bit and come back out. They got to let the defense recognize you. You just can't just come on the field. That's what you're for. Don't let a kid get burnt on a technicality if you can't save him. If you can save him, right? If you can save him, hey, let's do it. If the ball is snapped and he hasn't crossed the 9, then yes, it's a foul. Basket 2 simultaneously with the snap. But the best officiating is the foul that has never happened because we use our voice, we use our presence, and we keep the game clean. So what? Wing officials, you own the 9. Preventive officiating can turn a flag into a clean play if you just tell the player, hey, you got to go in, you got to come out. All right. Now we close the loop on that substitution basket and all of 5-yard penalties. We talked about 9-yard mark wrinkle. Now it's time to make the turn. It's up to this point, everything we covered has been about substitution, infractions that carry a 5-yard penalty. But here's the key. If those infractions aren't corrected, and if a substitute or replaced player goes on to participate, it escalates. What was a 5-yard illegal substitution foul morphs into a 15-yard illegal participation foul. That's the escalation. And that's where we're headed now. So this next section is all about understanding the transition, how a rule book itself forces us to move from Rule 3 onto Rule 9, and why the penalty changes from 5 to 15. Now, if you look at rule section 7 again, right? We're going to just look at it real quick. You can see where it escalates, right? Where it brings it up. Article 4, it tells us that if a replaced player or substitute tries to leave the field and does not participate in or affect the play, then it's still an illegal substitution 5-yard penalty. But the note changes everything. Participation by a replaced player or substitute is illegal participation, as in Rule 963. That's the escalation. That's where 5-yard penalty becomes a 15-yard penalty. Article 6 reinforces it, right? We see it in the notes. If somebody enter and do not participate, it stays substitution foul, 5 yards. But the second they participate, now it crosses the line. Now we're not in Rule 3 anymore. We're in Rule 963. So this is the turning point in the rule book. The words "does not participate" are what force us to go beyond the basket. We got to figure out what's going on, what's up with this. All right. Now, let's take that heavy language and make it simple. Where we've got 3 baskets. Each basket is a 5-yard penalty. Basket 1 is dead ball substitution. Basket 2 is simultaneously with the snap. Basket 3 is non-player substitution fouls. Those 3 baskets, 3 times equals 15. We got our 15-yard penalty. All right. It's a play on words, right? 5 to the 3rd power is a play on words. It's my words. I love it. I thought it was pretty cool when I was thinking about it because it escalates. I mean, we go from a 5 to a 15. 5 times 3 is 15, right? It works. So here's the key. If substitution just violated procedures, it's a 5. But if he interferes, if he plays, it morphs from a 5 to a 15. Substitution becomes a participant. So look at these right here. We have in basket 1, if a replaced player does not leave within 3 seconds and participate in the snap, guess what? Illegal participation. We got a 5-yard penalty. Let's say a replaced player in basket 2 is trying to get off the field. And the ball is snapped. He didn't get off the field, but he interferes with a receiver trying to go downfield. Illegal participation, 15-yard penalty. All right. In basket 3, the non-player who comes onto the field after the ball has been snapped and he participates. We got another 15-yard penalty. The only thing changes is where it's enforced from, but it's all a 15-yard penalty. And all these started just being a 5-yard penalty, but it morphed because they got involved. They participated. And that's how we get to this 5 to the 3rd power. Now, this is really cool because as I was preparing for this lesson, when we did basket 1 in class 1 and class 2, we gave definition. We gave definition for substitute. We gave definition for a replaced player. But what I've realized that the replaced player, the substitute, they all fall under the non-player umbrella. It just depends on the actions that they determine, the call, right? So if basket 1, a replaced player who doesn't get involved, get off the field, that's a non-player. In basket 2, a substitute who doesn't get off across the neutral zone before the snap, that's a non-player. In basket 3, if an extra man comes on the field after the snap, still a non-player, right? All of these are non-players. So here's the big review. Every basket has the same culprit. They're all non-players. Sometimes it's a replaced player, sometimes it's a substitute, sometimes it's a late arrival on the field. But no matter how they enter the story, they're all non-players. The only thing that changes is which basket they fall into and how the foul is enforced. And that depends on what happens. All right. So here we bridge everything together, right? When we look back in the three baskets, every single one of them has a non-player in it. Basket one is a replaced player who doesn't get off the field. Basket two is a substitute who don't get all the way across the neutral zone. Basket three is a non-player who come on the field after the snap. They're all non-players, just different titles, different roles, depending on when it happens. And that's the crazy part. No matter which baskets you're talking about, the story always starts with a non-player. Now, here's the key. The instant that non-player has an influence on the play, he morphs into a legal participant. Rule 230 defines as simple to have any influence on the play. Rule 963 shows how it happens in real action, touching the ball, hindering an opponent, or otherwise influencing the play. So the moment a substitute or replaced player does any of those things, he's no longer a non-player. He crossed the line and he became an illegal participant. All right. That's when the penalty escalates from 5 to 15. So let's look at the escalation trigger. Rule 964. We see enforcement of what we're already covered, right? Starting in A, Article 4A, has a direct correlation with Rule 376. Rule 376 tells us during the down, if a replaced player or substitute enter the field after the snap and does not participate, is a legal substitution, 5 yards. But instant he participates, Article 4, Section A takes over. It escalates to a legal participation, 15 yards. Now look at C. Article 4.6 has a direct correlation with Rule 371. Rule 371 says replaced player is supposed to leave the field within 3 seconds. But if he doesn't leave and the official don't catch it, then replaced player becomes a legal participant, and Article 4C comes into play. 12 yards more, 12 or more participants at the snap equals illegal participation again. That penalty escalates from a 5 to a 15. So these are the escalation triggers, whether it's Rules 371 tie into Article 4C or 376 tie into 4A. The pattern is the same: illegal participation. No participation equals 5 yards. Participation equals 15 yards. Same person, same play, different. The difference is whether he participates. That's the escalation, right? From a replaced player to a sub to a non-player, it's all about if they participate. Now, this is the out of the casebook, and this is what the casebook talks about the different parts of illegal participation. All right. First, if a team 8 has more than 11 players in formation at the snap, is a foul at the snap, enforced on the basic spot, which would be the previous spot. All right. Now notice when you see a basic spot, because we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Second, if a sub enters the field during the down and participates, is illegal participation, and again is enforced from the basic spot. It's very important. And this is why I think veterans get in trouble at, because they think basic spot just means one spot. So here's the contrast. Substitution fouls are narrow, enforced from either the previous spot or the succeeding spot. When we talked about substitution fouls, it was previous spot or succeeding spot. It was only 2 places of basic spots. But when we cross over to Rule 9, the legal participation, it opens the entire basic spot matrix. Now, depending on the play, you could be dealing with any of the basic spots. So the escalation doesn't change the yardage from 5 to 15. It only changes the enforcement spot. So look at this. It's 7 different basic spots, right? Up to now, we only been dealing with the substitution fouls, which only had 2 basic spots, previous and succeeding spot. But the moment a non-player morphs into a legal participant, we step outside the basket into the full penalty matrix. Now, we don't got time to cover that today. But understand, I think this is where a lot of officials get in trouble as well. They don't understand, okay, the basic spot doesn't mean always the succeeding spot. It could mean the previous spot. It could mean the end of the kick. It could mean the end of the run, depending on the play. Now, any of the 7 base spots could be applied. The goal line, the end of the kick, the end of the run, the previous spot, the succeeding spot, 20-yard line, right? So here's the big shift. Substitution fouls, 2 basic spots. Illegal participation opens the door for everything. That's why escalation matters. The penalty grows, so does the enforcement framework. Now, this is our transition point, right? We've just finished looking at escalation triggers and briefly look at the penalty matrix. Now we're ready to dive into the case plays. We're going to see one of the single situations that has a potential to produce 2 different complete rulings. And this is where the theory meets application. All right. A number of substitutes enter the field between downs. The officials do not recognize that one replaced player does not leave within 3 seconds. When the ball is snapped. All right. B12 is attempting to get off the field. All right, this is illegal participation. All right, it's a legal participation foul. The thing is, with this legal participation foul, it's a live ball because why? He's trying to get off. It goes in the basket 2. And it'll be enforced from the previous spot, not the succeeding spot, because it falls in the basket 2. So he's trying to hustle, didn't get off, and now we have that. Now, let's look at A12. It's in the formation as an extra lineman. All right, 2 scenarios. 1, B12 is trying to get off the field. The ball was snapped. We have illegal substitution, live ball foul. Now we got B2, B or A12 is in formation as an extra man, extra lineman. Now, in this related, this is the comments from the rule book, right? In a related situation, if the covering official counted players has determined there are more than 11 prior to the snap, a dead ball illegal substitution foul should be charged since the replaced player did not leave within 3 seconds. So this is a theory, right? This is something that, well, if he would have got off, this would happen. But this is only what should have happened if the officials recognized that the replaced player did not get off the field. But in reality, this is what happened. All right. However, if the covering official count is not complete before the snap is imminent, or if the substitution has not been monitored, it becomes illegal participation if the more than 11 are in the formation. Each team is responsible for substitution legally and for replaced players to leave within 3 seconds as required. So, because the officials didn't do their job, it escalated. There should have been a 5. It escalated into the 15. Why? Because they did not pay attention, right? And we're going to address that as well, because that deals with us as officials. When I read this case play, all I seen was the officials did not recognize. They did not monitor, which means they did not do their jobs. And we're going to address that here in a second. So this is my make it make sense section, right? Part where many of y'all probably not going to agree with me, but we're going to talk rule book, and we're going to talk what it should be, although we don't do it like that, but we're going to address it. Now, when we saw 371B, one of the case plays can give us 2 different rulings, depending on how we recognize it. It can be a 5 or a 15. On the surface, it looks like there's a conflict. One says 11 players in formation shut it down as a dead ball. substitution foul. The other says it's a foul simultaneously with the snap. So we're going to look at this. Let's look at the different nuances of what I've seen and what I think, my opinion, which is strongly backed up by the rules. So when we read 371 in the casebook, it says this: the covering official count of players has determined that there's more than 11 players prior to the snap. It's a dead ball, a legal substitution foul that should be charged since the replaced player did not leave within 3 seconds. Right? Sign. But there's a problem. The problem is, what did the case book say? In the comments, if there's more than 11 players in formation at the snap, either offensively or defensively, the foul is considered to have occurred simultaneously with the snap and is a legal participation. Now, the question is it a dead ball or live ball? Because the problem we have with veterans or new officials, that they're going to take something that's a live ball foul and make it a dead ball foul. Simultaneously with the snap is always a live ball foul. So, are we looking at a dead ball foul if 11 in formation, or should we let the snap go? Because, so which one is true? This is when we get into the nuances and where I believe if you're not paying attention and reading the rules and looking at the details, you're going to miss it. So let's get into this. What's the subtle difference? Let's slow it down. On the left, we see replaced player does not leave within 3 seconds. The key here is 3 seconds, right? On the right side, we rule a substitute enters and replaced player did not leave within 3 seconds. Both sides are pointing to the same conditions, the entry of a substitute. So what's the triggers here? Look at this. Substitutes. Replace players. 3 seconds. All right? All of these things are important to understand if it's going to be a dead ball foul or a live ball foul. All right? It's all about that time window, that 3 second time window. If you're not out in 3 seconds, it's a dead ball foul. But the thing is, because there's a substitution trigger. There was a sub. Let's dig into more. Now, this is how it works. A substitute enters the game. It triggers the replaced player must leave within 3 seconds. If the replaced player doesn't start leaving within 3 seconds, it becomes a dead ball foul for illegal substitution. But what if there is no substitution? What if they just came out of a timeout or change of possession and 12 line up? There is no more a 3 second rule apply because there was no sub within between the downs. They have up to the snap to get that player off the field. If they don't get the player off the field within 3 seconds, it's a live ball foul for illegal substitution. All right. The thing is this, and this is where we make things up, because there is no dead ball foul for having 12 in formation. There isn't one. You can't, there's a dead ball foul for having a replaced player not leave within 3 seconds, but there is no dead ball foul in the rule book for having 12 in formation. It's a live ball foul, and it carries a 15-yard penalty. So this is the closing punch here. If they have a sub that comes in, 3 seconds. Got to be off. And that don't make a difference. If you see a sub come in, you wasn't paying attention, you knew a replaced player to leave, and then they break the huddle and you count 12, it's a dead ball foul because the sub came in and the replaced player didn't leave within 3 seconds. So it's a dead ball foul immediately. All right, you don't have to wait until the snap. You're going to wait till they get off. It's a dead ball foul because they're supposed to have been off when the sub came in, the replaced player supposed to leave, according to basket 1. But after a change of possession, after a kick, and they come off the sideline and 12 come on the field, there is no sub trigger. There's no replaced player trigger. So guess what? Up to the snap, where in the first one, they only have 3 seconds. Now they have up to 25 seconds to get the player off the field. If they don't get him off the field, if they don't fix it, it's a foul simultaneously with the snap. And that's what it means. It becomes a foul at the snap because they did not get off when they were supposed to get off. All right. Now, I get it. There's a reluctancy, right? A lot of veteran officials, they like to teach, hey, just call a dead ball foul. But the rule book doesn't teach it that way, right? And that's the thing. What you do is what you do. My job is just to teach the rules, and what you do after that is on you, all right? But many veterans like to hesitate. They don't want to stop at 15. They don't want to drop a 15-yard penalty on what they see as a technical situation. They think if I can call the fifth, if I call the 15, I'm changing the game. So what happens? Cruz will shut it down early, call a dead ball substitution foul, and walk 5 off. That feels safer. That feels less harsh. And I get it. I've been there myself. I had a game just recently where I wanted coach, count your players. The snap happened. I threw the flag, gave him 50-yard penalty. Coach asked me, why did you just not shut it down and give me the 5? I thought about it. I said, I don't know, because the rules don't say it. Well, maybe because the coach expected, because so many officials has been officiating that way. They've been doing it that way. They've been just calling it dead because it's safer that way. It makes more sense to do it that way. And that's how they've been doing it. But as we read before, it's not my responsibility for substitution, replace player, get off the field, or coming on the field with 12. I gave the coach count your players. He didn't count his players. All I can do is do that. And, I just want to see how the coach will react. Of course, he didn't like it. But hey, that's the rules. And if we're going to enforce the rules, we're going to enforce the rules, right? So I know a veteran like to shut it down. I get it. If that's what you want to continue to do, you could do it. But it doesn't fly in the face of what the rules say. Now, look at a bigger picture. Because of philosophy, because of reluctancy, crews have been shutting these situations down for 5 yards when the rule book clearly says it's 15. And over time, this has the danger of reluctancy creeping in. And when it ends up rewriting the rules by how we officiate, not by what the rule book says. And coaches pick this up. They pick up on this. Coaches get used to hearing 5 yards. They start expecting 5. So when you enforce 15, they look at you like, man, you did something wrong. Why you didn't shut it down? But in reality, tradition may be comfortable, but it's not the book. It's not the rule book. The NFHS rule book says it clear. If a sub comes in on the field, replaced player doesn't leave in 3 seconds, a dead ball foul. If 12 in the coming formation, it's a legal participation, live ball foul, 15-yard penalty. And the good news is we have the tools, right? We have preventive officiating, and one of them is, we can use, right? So if you don't want to call a 15-yard penalty, then count early. And then warn the coach, count your players. It gives them an opportunity to correct it. Because by rule, they have up to the snap to fix it. That's our option. Count early, communicate early, prevent the foul from escalating to a 15-yard penalty. But if the snap comes and they haven't fixed it, then it's not tradition that decides, it's the rule book. One is a pass down, the other is a written down, right? So we pass one thing down with traditions, and then we have the rule book, what the rule book says is written down. And if we're on the field, and the choice is tradition or the rule book, whatever you choose, I choose the rule book, and plain and simple. Now, this is our last stop in the journey through Beyond the Basket, right? Up to now, we're focused on substitution, replace players, and the 3-second triggers. But now we're going to step into a new territory. Deception, substitutes, replace players, regular players can all be penalized for illegal participation if their actions are used to deceive the opponent. And although this rule applies to both sides, it's mostly committed by the offense, right? Let's be honest. You don't really see too much defense trying to deceive the offense. So this is where the game changes. We're no longer just counting numbers or thinking about the core illegal substitution fouls are monitoring entering substitutes on the offense to enter they reach the 9-yard mark to prevent illegal formation. But here is the core connection. We need to make both illegal formation and pretend substitution. This deception involves substitutes, right? No matter what you're talking about. But notice, it's not just about the presence of a substitute, but it's about the intent and the actions of his intent. This is the big difference. What is the actions that what he's doing that makes it escalate into illegal participation? Now, remember we talked about this rule earlier, and I said I'm going to bring it up again. And in the ruling, in red, it says what? Furthermore, the act of his coming onto the field must not deceive the defensive team, right? So let's say there was only 10 on the field, right? And then the other person sneaks up on the field at 11th player, and he gets set. You have to, was that illegal formation or illegal, or trying to deceive the defense for illegal participation, all right? This is where you have to make that determination. Now, look at the rule. Rule 4, we didn't look at this. We're going to look at it now. To use a player, replace player, substitute, and coach, athlete, trainer, other attendant, in a substitution or pretend substitution to deceive the defense. This act, at or immediate before the snap or free kick, this becomes illegal participation. All right? Is that deception? This is where we get into it at. Now, so the case plain language and the rule text is perfectly aligned. The late entry of an A1 isn't automatically illegal, but if the act creates deception, it rises to the level of illegal participation. Now, let's talk about techniques wing officials can use in these situations. And I was thinking about, like, what can we do when we got a hideout player? 3 things. First, we can verbally engage the player. If we see a late entry, right, wing officials, talk to him directly. Let him know that you got to get into the numbers to check in, right? Secondly, if he's not moving, he's trying to warn the coach, right? He got to get into the numbers, right? Address him, let him know, right? Now you're putting the kind of, if he don't say nothing, now you know what you have. If he said, don't say nothing, now we fall into the grounds of deceiving the defense, which becomes an illegal participation. Third, the player does not clarify his purpose or continues to linger. You as wing officials must treat it as a potential deception. Remember, the purpose here is not to penalize the team unnecessary, but to prevent illegal participation before it happens. That's how preventive officiating works. So this is what we should be doing as a wing official. Hey man, you got to go check in and say it loud enough to defense here. All right, coach, he got to check in. He got to go to the numbers. All right, all these different things you got to be careful of. You just can't walk on the field and sneak up on the corner and think it's okay. All right, so sub the sham. Let's look at another play here. Sub the sham. Here the case play. Following a kickoff return, A1 and A2 enters the field, while A3, A4, A5 move toward the sideline. So 2 came in, 3 is headed toward the sideline. A5 stops within 9 yards mark, while A3 and A4 continues toward the team box. The ball is blown, ready for play, with A3 and A4 outside the 9-yard marks, and there was no formation, or the snap happened without a huddle, and the quarterback throws to A4, who has gone downfield as a wide receiver. Ruling: this play is illegal because a pretend substitution is used to deceive the defense. The penalty for 15 yards is a legal participation foul, will be administered from the previous spot, which is a basic spot, since the foul occurred at the snap. Okay, so what we see here, we see A5 running off. The defense think, he's a sub. He's going off the field. He probably went to the sideline. He probably didn't turn up. He probably stood in the backfield facing his team box, but still on the field, right? And so what happened? The ball is snapped. No one is covering him. He shoots up the field. He catches a pass. Again, this is where my wing officials need to see this and be able to recognize, hey, are you on or are you off? If you're on, let me know you're on. And you say it loud enough so that everybody can hear you, because this is illegal. Deceiving the defense. All right. All right. So now we make the connections, right? We're talking about sloppy substitution, which is somebody coming on the field and not getting to the 9-yard mark. It's a 5-yard penalty, right? He just came on, not trying to deceive nobody, or he just didn't go all the way. All right. You talk to him, but before is about to move, the ball is snapped. Okay, so we got that, right? But then we move to the sloppy to sneaky. When the action is designed to deceive, that's no longer substitution, that's deception. That's illegal participation. So ask yourself, was this just a hustle? A sub coming on and failing to reach the numbers? Or was it a sham? A sub disguising himself as a replaced player to fool the defense? What separates a sloppy substitution from a sham substitution are the actions that are intended to deceive the defense. That's the key distinction. A routine substitution mistake is sloppy, but when the actions themselves are meant to fool the defense, it's transferred from a 5-yard illegal substitution or illegal formation to a legal participation foul. All right, we got done with that part. Now we're gonna be doing officials. Gonna look a little longer because we're almost there, but this is very important because this connects to the sub to snap window. It connects to pre-snap mechanics. It's very important, and that's why I added it, and that's why we're going to cover it. All right. As we transition from mechanics, let us step back and make connections. The rules we've been studying, especially Rule 3.7 on substitutions, are not just abstract, right? They directly drive mechanics. Mechanics exist to enforce rules, and rules shape how we officiate. From counting players to monitoring replaced players to ensuring substitutes reach the 9-yard marks, these mechanics are rules driven. And we have to understand our mechanics. The rules become clear. The rules become clear because we know our mechanics. And in this section, we're going to focus on how substitution rules dictate how we officiate before the snap and how our mechanics should be. Now, I want to bring this back up again because when I looked at this is what came out to me the most, right? As official, did not recognize, officials count is not complete before the snap, the sub wasn't monitored. All that's red flags for officials was not doing their jobs. They was too busy talking on the sideline with the team mom. They was too busy daydreaming about something else, and they wasn't doing their job. And new officials, this is very tough because I know you don't know what you're supposed to do, and your crew chief is probably not telling you what you're supposed to do. So that's where we come into this problem where you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. The sub to snap window. This is a failure on the officials as much as a failure on the team. And that's why this miss becoming just a 3-second violation to escalate into a 5 to a 15 because the official did not catch it. This is the missing link, right? When somebody on the crew, every official is a link. And if somebody on the crew doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing, like how many times I give out I'm working the wings and I signal the count and my other official is not signaling to me. He's not counting with me or she's not counting with me. You become a missing link. You affect our integrity. You affect our game because you think it's not important to count. We're all supposed to count. We're all responsible for counting. And this is what this whole section is going to be about in a nutshell, that we are supposed to be counting. All right? Each team responsible Each team is responsible for legal and replace players to leave the field. They are, right? Even though the rule says that teams are responsible, we as officials have duties and responsibility to monitor team substitution, right? Rule 1 in the rule book, Rule 1, Section 1, Article 4. The game is administered by game officials whose titles and duties are stated in the NFHS Football Game Officials Manual. So this manual tells us what we're supposed to do. That's why it's written. We're supposed to count, we're supposed to monitor, we're supposed to recognize. Every time we execute it, we become part of our DNA, right? Every time we execute it, it becomes part of our DNA. You say, what does DNA stand for? Duty in action. That's what DNA is. Duty in action. One of our duties is to count. However, when we read this case play, what do we read? Officials did not recognize. The substitutions, oops, doing it again. Why does it do that? I don't know. Why is it doing it? Okay. Substitutions do not monitor. All right. Cover official count is not complete before the snap. All right. It's not detected, referring to officials did not notice a replaced player did not leave within 3 seconds. Why? Failure to count, officials let the snap go without confirming. Oh, that is Julius doing that. Hey guys, don't touch your money. I think for some reason I have it where y'all can write on this thing. And somebody's writing. I gotta make sure I turn that off. I thought it was me at first. I'm like, I ain't got my thing on. All right. Failure to monitor replace players, strike. Failure to recognize more than 11 information at the snap. All right. All of this. All right. The rule puts the substitution teams. This rule puts substitution on the teams. But when we don't fulfill our duties, when we fail to count, fail to monitor, fail to recognize, it becomes a breakdown of crew integrity. That's why 5 yards become 15. And that's why crew credibility is lost, because we didn't do our job. Somebody is not doing their job, or both are not doing their job. All right. So preventive officiating facilitates the smooth conduct of the game within the rules. The game officials, by actions or words, can frequently prevent certain fouls from happening. So one of the most preventable fouls in football is illegal substitution. By simply counting, monitoring, and communicating, we can stop many of the fouls that happen, right? All we got to do is just count, guys. All we got to do is just pay attention. All right, of course, we can't prevent every foul, but preventive officiating allows us to reduce or mitigate them. That's the difference between crews that manage the game well and those that constantly chase fouls after the fact. Preventive officiating and counting mechanics are inseparable. Hey, Julius, you keep hitting a mark. Be careful. You're hitting something, and it's putting marks on my board. All right. So let's talk about the count. Let me see if I can take that off right quick. I keep trying to erase Julius marks. All right. All right. We just saw how preventive officiating is the standard, but how do we actually live it out as a crew? This is where sub-snap time window becomes critical. The small space that we have in counting mechanics is either success or fail. When each official count is isolated, we risk breaking the chain. If I'm just counting, you're not, we got a problem. Everybody should be counting, right? We count, we confirm, we communicate, crew integrity preserved, right? We're good to go. That's why our next section is all about us. When we step on the field, we're not merely 4, 5, or 7 individuals in stripes. We're one crew. That means we speak the same language. We use the same signals. We hold the same standard. The one crew concept is also going beyond just the game where we're working. It means that we're consistent across the entire organization. From one crew to the next, we're all doing the same thing. We're all counting. No matter what crew you're on, we all use the same mechanics, the same standard, the same language. So even if you're assigned to work with a different crew, there's no adjustment period. All right? We all speak the same language. That's what gives coaches, players confidence. One standard, one language, one crew. Think like the military, right? Soldiers use signals to communicate quietly, but clearly. We do the same. Every silent signal we give is deliberate. It's count, confirm, communicate without saying a word, right? The team don't hear and the fans don't hear. It's for one audience, and that's for us as a crew. No one hears what we're saying but us. That's why consistency matters across crews. Every fist, every arm cross, every chest cross is all on the same page. If one official freelance and use different gestures, it breaks the language. But when we're uniform and we use the same signals at the same time, it's powerful. And that's what we're trying to get across here. And that's what it's all about from the sub snap window and preventing some of these fouls when we can. It's trust, it's discipline, it matters as one crew. Just as soldiers use hand signals in combat, we use our signals as well to communicate, to count, confirm, and to communicate. All right. So, a closed fist, arm straight out, it says what? We got 11, right? We got 11. This is referees, umpires, wing officials, everybody. The hand goes out, we got 11. That's our signal, and it should happen every play. Don't matter if it's a dead ball, live ball, we use the signal. We count our respective teams, and we signal. When we don't have 11, we have less than 11, we put our hands on our chest, 2 hands on the chest, which means that we have less than 11 players on the field, right? So this means we have 11. This means we have less than 11. Now, this is the thing. There is really no signal out there for we have 12. Now, I see some books, they may have 2 fingers on the chest, or it may say twirl your fingers at your waistline, and it's nothing really standardized. So I'm thinking, what can we use to standardize it, and what can we use PGO to use? And why not just adopt the legal substitution one? Right? This means legal substitution. Why not? Right? Now, this is the thing. People say, well, that's already taken up, right? That means illegal substitution, right? But how many times in the rule book that signals often are reused for multiple contexts, right? False start means illegal kick, right? It means illegal formation, right? When you punch back, that means a player is off the line, or it means a backwards pass. So a lot of signals are reused or repurposed in the rule book. So why? And this is very clear, right? I can do this across the field, my wing official on the other side. That means I'm counting over 11 on the field. He's going to recount, he's going to confirm it, or he may say, no, I got this, and I mean I got to recount and see what we have. But this is what the signal that I think we should all be using, the signal that we have more than 11 on the field. All right, so let's talk about crossing the line. We're almost done, guys. All right, so we read this before, right? Preventive officiating facilitates a smooth conduct of the game within the rules. The game officials, by actions of words, can frequently prevent certain fouls from happening. But it goes on in the case book to say this. However, game officials must be able to draw the line between preventive officiating and coaching. So what do we mean by that? It's when an official sees there's 12 on the field and say, coach, you got to count your players. This is where we cross the line, when we start giving out numbers. All right, so let's talk about this for a minute. Coach, you got 12 on the field when they really have 11. You pull a player off the field. Now they're playing with 10. Now we put them at a disadvantage, right? What if they're the defense and the offense scores? They're going to blame us for that because we told them to take one off the field. Or, hey, coach, you got 10, but they really have 11. Another player come on the field, and then another official throw a flag for illegal participation. It's all our fault because we gave out a number. Rather than saying, coach, count your players. We don't give out numbers. And I've seen it this year. Hey, coach, you got 12. Coach, you got 10. Coach, no, it's very simple. Coach, count your players. For this solution, ultimately, is a team responsibility. We share only in counting mechanics, preventive officiating, and crew integrity. That's it. We don't give out numbers. Ever do we give out numbers to teams. So, these signals are not just blindly echoing. We don't just echo signals, right? We're truly confirming, right? When we give out a signal, that's all three in one. We're counting, we're confirming, we're communicating. Every time we're giving out more than 11, less than 11, it's all communicating. It's all doing the same thing. So let's talk about accountability. Getting better at signaling is not an option. It's part of crew mechanic, all right? As a crew chief, if you're a crew chief and you're on this, you need to be making sure that everybody on your team, including yourself, is counting. Every official must commit to giving proper signals every down, every play. No matter if it's a dead ball, live ball, don't make a difference. I don't care if I just count 11 with a dead ball foul, false start, and we go back and no one came on and off. I'm going to recount. It's all about building that DNA, right? That duty in actions. It's a play on words. We want to be in our DNA, and it's part of our duty. Now, here goes some accountability tools that we can use. All right, crew challenges. Turn it into a challenge, right? If I give out a signal and I'm giving out a signal and my counterpart don't give out a signal, hey, you owe me 5 push-ups every time you don't give out a signal, right? Make it fun, right? If it's that, you call it fun. All right, you forget to count, then you buy me something. You buy me a soda or something. You buy me a drink or something. You buy me some lemonade, which is $10. All right? You don't let your partner off the hook. If they, come up with an agreement and hold each other accountable. Everybody should be counting. If you're not counting, you're wrong. All right? It's all about consistency. It's all about preventive officiating. It's all about counting between officials. If we don't signal each other, we set ourselves up for that something can be preventable to hurt teams because we didn't do our jobs. All right? So just think about it. There's some things that we can do to challenge each other to do better. All right. So since I've been talking about the military term, we're going to keep it up a little bit and let's talk about the recon. Right? We're going to recon our area. And again, it's a military term, but it fits perfectly for what we do. Just like their surroundings, every official scan and confirm their own area before the snap. First, reconfirm your count. Don't assume, check your numbers. Every official should know there are 12 on the field, or 11 on the field, or 11 are. I got 11, you got 11, all right? Second, recognize any movements. Who's leaving? Who's entering? Is someone sneaking out wide or drifting toward the sideline? That's what we should be doing. Not talking to the team moms, not talking to the coaches, not turning our backs to the field. We have a job to do. Third, recheck for late players. Don't let a last-second sub slip in through and create deception. That's our job. We should be always check in, recheck. And finally, reinforce by signaling. Give your crew the count again. Show integrity by communicating. Always check. Somebody come on and come off, count again, reconfirm. All right? This is how this works. This is how we get it in our DNA. This is our duty in action. All right. So, who does the referee count? The referee counts the offense. All right? That's what the referee counts, the offense. All the other stuff is there. You can look at it. But the referee counts off. Say this because I remember doing some games, and I know some associations do it different. They do it different because it doesn't comport to the rule book at all. The mechanics manual, all right? The mechanics manual specifically say who counts who, all right? I've been on games where they say, well, if I'm a wing official, I count the team on my side no matter the offense or defense. We are making this stuff up. It's not in the rule. It's not in the mechanics manual, all right? Umpire also count the offense, all right? Mirrors the referee, count the offense, give out the signals, right? Wing officials count the defense, period. Wing officials do not count the offense. And let me go back one. Umpires, you don't count the defense. I've seen umpires count defense. What are you doing? I'm counting defense. Why? Because I'm on the defensive side. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to count the offense with the referee. The wing official responsibility to count the defense. And if you're doing 5-man, count the defense and confirm it with the wing officials. All right. Oh, we made it. So let's go out. We're going to do our recap, and we got out of here. 2 recaps, and then we're done. First, let's nail down the crucial difference between illegal substitution and legal participation. All right. 3 seconds rules, stuff like that. So we got to know the difference between legal substitution and legal participation. Is it just they coming on? Did they participate? Did they involve themselves? Is it sloppy coming on the field? Or was it intent to deceive somebody? All right. The sub and snap window. This is our sacred duty. You might think that's kind of corny, but it's not. Our responsibility is to make sure that we count, confirm, and communicate all the time. This is all about crew integrity. Count, monitor, and communicate. All right. This is what we're supposed to do. And to recap on crew duties again, every foul depends on mechanics. If we do our jobs, there is no foul. All right. It's all about us. Count isn't casual, it's discipline. Right? We got to count. Communication isn't optional, it's required. And integrity isn't individuals, it's collective. We're all responsible. When we step on that field, we step as one crew, using one language and one standard. That's what keeps substitutions, participation, fouls from under control. And that's what protects the game. All right. So what do we want to do? We want to count, and count again. Right? Because that is our duty in action. That is our DNA. All right. And that is it. Thank you for hanging on. Let me close out of this.